Okay, so if you play electric guitar, you definitely know that sound, right? That endless, howling, sustain, controlled feedback.
Oh yeah, it's glorious, total rock power.
But getting it traditionally, that meant like huge amps, crazy volume.
And actually positioning your guitar just right with the speaker, it was pure physics, really.
Yeah, a real acoustic thing. You needed that sheer volume, that energy loop between the guitar and the amp.
And getting that reliably, like in a studio or a small practice space. Good luck.
Forget about it. It was pretty much all or nothing until, well, in 1984, a little red pedal came along that basically promised to cheat physics.
And that's what we're diving into today. The BOSS DF2 Super Feedbacker and Distortion. This thing was, well, pretty wild.
We're going to unpack the history, the tech inside, and why it became this sort of cult classic. How did this box bottle infinity?
Yeah, our mission here is to figure out how BioSS pulled off this seemingly impossible trick. Infinite controllable feedback, but like at any volume level, it was a really inventive hybrid design for its time.
So the main thing for you to grab onto right at the start is this, the DF2. It was two things in one box.
Exactly. It wasn't just a distortion pedal with like extra gain. It was an analog distortion circuit mashed together with a genuine digital feedback synthesizer.
Which was radical, because before the DF2, getting that sustained feedback, it was tricky.
Totally. High gain amps, super loud stage volume, and honestly, sometimes just plain luck.
Right. And the volume alone was often impossible for recording or, smaller gigs.
And even when you could get it loud, it wasn't always consistent, was it? Depending on the room, the stage.
Yeah, one night you'd get this amazing screaming note, the next night, just mud.
So the DF2 was engineered to solve that, to give you consistency. It basically isolated the idea of feedback, that harmonic overtone.
And bottled it, so you could get those long singing lead lines, that feedback feel, even playing quietly. Bedroom volume.
Precisely. And to really get how bold this was, you got to remember the context. 1984.
Right. This was a huge time for BSS. They were really pushing beyond just analog pedals.
They were experimenting heavily with hybrid circuits, mixing analog and digital. The digital revolution was hitting guitar pedals hard.
And that context is key, because when the DF2 first landed, people didn't quite get it, did they?
No, not really. It was pretty misunderstood. The name Super Feedbacker, well, it made players think it was just, more.
More distortion, more gain, like it would push your amp into feedback harder.
Exactly. They thought it caused feedback through sheer force, like other high-gain pedals maybe aimed to do.
But that wasn't the point at all.
Nope. The real genius, the thing people missed, was that it had its own engine inside, a dedicated pitch-falling tone generator.
So like a little computer listening to the note.
Pretty much. A microprocessor analyzing the pitch and then synthesizing a sustained tone based on that note. It was analysis and synthesis, not just brute force amplification.
Okay, let's dig into that architecture then, because that's where the cleverness really is. How did they actually combine the analog crunch and this digital brain?
It's actually a pretty neat dual stage setup. Stage one is, well, it's the foundation analog distortion.
And our sources say this is based on a classic, right?
Yeah, heavily based on the DS1 distortion, which, by 84 was already everywhere, a huge hit.
Okay, but why the DS1 specifically? It's known for being kind of sharp, a bit mid-scooped. How does that work with the feedback part?
That's a good point. The DS1 is reliable, it's articulate, it uses that hard clipping op amp with symmetrical diodes, gives you that crisp cutting sound. Good for hard rock, early metal riffs, that kind of thing.
Right.
And by putting the pitch detection after that aggressive analog clipping, you're feeding the digital side a really clear, strong signal to analyze. It helps the processor lock onto the note.
Ah, okay. So the DS1 part gives you the initial sound, the attack, the distorted turn. But stage two, the digital synthesis.
That's the main event.
That's the magic show, yeah.
So walk us through it. What happens when you actually step on the pedal and hold it down? Right, so when you hold that switch, it's not just passing the distortion signal anymore. It engages this sustained circuit. There's a microprocessor in there that kicks in.
Listening.
Yep. It starts doing digital pitch detection. It figures out what note you just played, and then it fires up a waveform generator to sustain that pitch indefinitely using a synthesized tone.
So it hears the note and then kind of takes over from your guitar string as it fades, replacing it with this perfect digital copy, maybe with a harmonic.
That's basically it. It detects the fundamental note and then generates this sine-like harmonic overtone. It's designed to simulate the sound of amp feedback.
But it's pure, right, like perfectly in tune.
Pitch perfect. It'll hold for as long as you keep that switch pressed down.
That difference seems really important. It's simulated feedback, not actual acoustic feedback. It must have its own sound.
Oh, it absolutely does. It's not like a roaring Marshall stack about to explode. It's smoother. People often call it kind of surreal, almost liquid-sounding sustain.
You lose the chaos of the room, maybe.
Yeah, you lose the unpredictability, but you gain perfect control over the pitch and the sustain. Repeatable, every time.
Okay, that takes us nicely to the controls. You got the standard stuff. Level, tone, distortion. But then there's that fourth knob, overtone. That's the key, isn't it?
That overtone knob is everything. It lets you tweak the harmonic character of that synthesized feedback tone.
How does it work? Like low setting versus high setting?
So when you set it low, the feedback sound it generates is closer to the actual note you play, the fundamental. It sounds a bit more like natural low-frequency feedback, maybe more like a drone.
Okay, but then you crank it up.
Then it shifts. It generates a higher, more noticeable harmonic. Our sources usually say it generates a tone about an octave above the note you played.
So that's where you get that soaring, singing lead sound, almost like sci-fi.
Exactly. That kind of texture is super hard to get reliably with just an amp and volume. It gives you that really clear, high harmonic sustain.
That's pretty flexible then. You can choose between a more realistic sustain or something totally synthetic, almost like an EBO.
And that creative control is huge. Being able to shift the harmonic content like that, it opened up possibilities beyond just standard distortion sustain.
Okay, let's talk about the sound itself and maybe some of the quirks. Because it is synthesized, there are things users need to know, right?
For sure. First off, like we said, the synthesized tone is unique. If you go in expecting it to sound exactly like your amp feeding back naturally, you might be a bit surprised. It's cleaner, smoother.
And the tracking, because it's digital, listening to the pitch.
Yeah, that's the main thing. The tracking can sometimes get a little wobbly.
When does that happen usually?
It works best on single notes. Nice, clear single notes and maybe simple intervals. If you try to feed it complex chords or like really fast wild bends while you're holding the switch.
The processor gets confused.
It can, yeah. It struggles a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was really designed for sustaining lead lines, not deciphering complex harmony. It rewards clean playing when you engage the sustain.
Makes sense. And then there's that other thing, the classic 80s BLSS issue that catches people out, power.
Ah, yes, the ACA adapter saga. So unlike pretty much all modern pedals that run on standard 9-volt DC, lots of vintage BLSS pedals from that era, including the DF2.
Needed the old ACA power supply, which was different, right?
Yeah, it was unregulated and effectively delivered a higher voltage under load.
So if you plug an old Japanese DF2 into a modern, regulated PSA-style power supply, especially if it's daisy-chained,
it doesn't work right.
It often sounds weak, thin, the LED might be dim, or the effect just doesn't engage properly. It's starved for the voltage it expects.
That must be super frustrating if you pick one up and don't know about that chord.
Oh yeah, it's a rite of passage for vintage BISS collectors. You got to know about the AC-PSA difference.
But even with those technical points, the DF2 clearly carved out its own niche. It wasn't just another distortion pedal.
Not at all. It opened up some really cool creative avenues.
Like what? Beyond just making leads sustain longer. Well, studios loved it. If you needed that sustaining feedback texture for a track, but you just couldn't crank a big amp, maybe because of neighbors or isolation booths.
The DF2 was the perfect workaround.
Exactly. It gave you that power, that sustain without shaking the walls. Pure signal, no room noise.
And thinking about genres, where else did it find a home? Places with dense sounds, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. It got picked up pretty quickly for atmospheric stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Experimental players, early shoegaze bands, they loved it.
Why? For creating layers?
Yeah, you could build these huge, drawn-out sonic textures, perfect for sustaining leads over washes of reverb and delay, making these big cinematic drones.
Like a faux EBO thing?
Precisely. A lot of guitarists figured out you could use that infinite sustain feature to get a sound very similar to an EBO, that constant Bose string kind of vibe, without needing the actual device.
That makes total sense, given the tone is synthesized and doesn't rely on the string vibrating forever.
Right. It kind of transcended being just a distortion pedal and became more of a sound design tool for some players.
So maybe not a massive commercial smash hit like the DS1 was?
No, probably not on that scale.
But the DF2 definitely got that cult following.
It really did.
Yeah.
Precisely because it was weird. That surreal sustained its unique behavior.
Mm.
It was just different. And conceptually, it was one of Bias's boldest moves in the 80s, I think.
Putting a microprocessor inside a distortion pedal back then was pretty out there.
Totally. Integrating that level of digital took into a standard compact pedal format was really forward-thinking.
And if someone's looking for one today, are there particular versions collectors go for, like the older ones?
There are preferences, yeah. It was made for a good while, like 1984 up to about 1994.
The decade.
Uh-huh. And collectors definitely tend to seek out the earlier ones, the made in Japan units.
Why those specifically? Better sound.
The perception is often that they have slightly more responsive tracking, and maybe the tone of the digital oscillator is a bit smoother, a bit warmer, compared to some of the later ones made elsewhere. Whether that's true or placebo, well, that's the vintage gear debate.
Huh, always. But the whole journey of the DF2 is pretty cool. It starts with this really physical, loud, messy, acoustic problem amp feedback.
Yeah, pure physics.
And it ends with this clever technological fix, mashing up analog feel with digital control.
It's kind of like liberation through synthesis, isn't it?
Yeah.
The DF2 took this chaotic, hard-to-control phenomenon, feedback sustain, and turned it into something you could dial in precisely. An art form, almost.
By sticking that DS1 front end with that digital tone generator.
Yeah, they managed to capture and control something that used to be entirely dictated by volume and physical space. Pretty neat.
So wrapping this up, what's the bigger picture here for you listening? What does this kind of engineering feat tell us?
Well, it makes you think, right? If they could successfully isolate and synthesize something specific, like harmonic feedback back in the 80s, removing it from needing sheer volume, where does that idea lead?
What else could be bottled?
Exactly. What other bits of musical physics, the way piano strings resonate together, or the specific bloom of a trumpet note, or how a cymbal decays, could those be perfect, isolated, controlled, synthesized?
Digitally captured for musicians to use in new ways.
Yeah. What's the next acoustic phenomenon that gets turned into pure controllable data? That seems like the legacy of something like the DF2. It points towards a future of even more control over sound itself.